Debs, do you want to just speak quickly about the survey that you're running?
Yeah, so I just posted it in the group, but we're running a survey for the women's game over here for supporters of the women's game to sort of see the comfort levels of going back into the stadium, you know, how often they were going before, whether there will be changes if you do go into the stadium, whether it will change your spending habits, whether you'd want to buy drinks, you'd want to buy merchandise, stuff like that. So I think one of the clearest things that's coming out, and Jude might jump in on this as well, but one of the clearest things that's coming out of communication around this, our survey runs until next week, but other conversations that I've had is the level of communication from the clubs outwards towards the supporters to say, hey, this is what we're doing in order to make sure you're safe. That's what the supporters want. They want a level of communication, a level of clarity, and to be involved at every step, so that there's a transparent process that's happening. So I think that's one of the big things as well. I mean, one of the questions I think on there is phrased sort of like, do you trust your club to get this right for you? So that it's going to be an interesting set of results, I think. And you know, we're just trying to promote it as much as possible to try to get as wide a base, you know, as many answers as possible, as many opinions, and then the hope is that will give us a steer and the clubs and leagues a steer. So, but Jude, I don't know if you wanted to jump in on anything on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, as City, we've got in contact with Manchester City, but whilst the team, so we're off season now in England, so the top, I think it's definitely the top team, the top tier, and I think the second one, I think they're now starting back in pre-season training. Obviously they're in their little COVID bubbles and they're having tests every week and things like that. So, but not necessarily all the operations team are back. So some of the key people that we work with, they're not back yet. But we've reached out already to say, hello, we're here. You know, we're really keen to work with you if you want to bounce things off of us, you know, ideas obviously from the supporters club, and made it clear, you know, we're working with the FSA as well collectively, really trying to push that survey across, you know, anybody who goes to a game, you know, fill that in. You don't have to be a member of the supporters club, just, you know, fill it in if you go to women's football matches. But it is, I mean, you know, the majority of our members, and it's probably across the country, across the world, you know, we want to feel safe. So, you know, I personally, I trust my club to do the right thing. And, you know, yeah, if it's things like you have to wear a mask, we have to be socially distanced, you know, as I said, the attendances in the WSL, you know, they're not as big and as the US. So, you know, some stadiums you can do it. So you could have your 1 meter plus with a mask or 2 meters, and you could just about do it if you open up some more stands. But some clubs, they just couldn't do it with a restricted capacity. They're too small. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out. Obviously everybody's looking at government guidelines. I think there's a lot of test sort of things happening. So I think there's been has it been rugby, and I think I've seen cricket. I think cricket were doing some testing with socially distanced fans in the UK. I think they're doing some snooker and rugby and things like that. So I'm sure football will be done at some point. But so yeah, it's going to be interesting. You know, yeah, but we just want it to be safe. And from government guidelines, expectations is, you know, if the Women's Super League is going to start at the beginning of September, they're not looking for fans to be back in until October. So that kind of tells you that the start of the season could well be behind closed doors. And the fact that they're restarting, they're completing last season's FA Cup. So, you know, the most historic cup in the women's game and men's game as well, you know, is going to be behind closed doors, which, you know, it's frustrating. So we'll see what happens. But we're ready to go back when it's right to do so. But it's the whole periphery, you know, getting to games, and as Debs was saying, you know, buying food or just getting into the stadium, the facilities, you know, it's just making sure, you know, how clean is it. And I don't know about how it works in the US, but the majority of women's teams in England ground share. So they'll typically ground share with maybe a men's team. So if you've got the men's team playing at home on the Saturday, for a completely different football club. So it's not even their own club; it's a completely different football club. So, and then the women's team are playing there on the Sunday. It's like, well, how are you demonstrating how clean the stadia is from one match to the next? And and that's really important. So yeah, it's going to be interesting couple of months to see how it pans out.
Mm.